A warm welcome to today's event, which was organized by the IDS Club, the Initiative of German-Speaking Students. It's a pleasure to have you here today, and we're honored by the presence of our special guest, His Excellency Gernot Pfandler, Ambassador of the Austrian Embassy in Kosovo, Mr. Ramadan Ilazi, Deputy Minister of European Integration, and Mr. Manuel, Migration Attache of the German Embassy in Kosovo. Today's discussion is centered around mass immigration into the European Union. How has the European Union dealt with the recent migration wave, and what have been the causes of the exodus of Kosovar people in the beginning of the year? Before we start with the panel discussion, we would like to show you the documentary film Rejected, created by KFOS, Kosovo Foundation of Open Society in Kosovo. This documentary film has been done in support of Kosovo's visa liberalization. Rudina Hasimia will shortly introduce the documentary. Thank you for being here and enjoy.
To present the documentary for the first time, and I'd like to say a few words on the reason that we've made the documentary. We've all been baffled by the horrible imagery of Kosovars migrating at the end of 2014 and beginning of 2015, and so we just wanted to explore the reasoning why that was happening and what it means, but we try to explore that from the perspective of an average Kosovar whose freedom of movement has been restrained by the visa regime imposed by the Schengen countries. And we try to identify stakeholders in this issue. So you have state institutions who are trying to regulate the flow of migrants into their own states. And you have citizens who have to or want to travel for one reason or another, but you, on the other hand, you have a growing industry of people smugglers trying to take advantage of these people who have to travel or have to choose the illegal route of migration. So we've been trying to see how all these stakeholders are interlinked, and through interviews with representatives of civil society in Kosovo and representatives of the government of Kosovo, and I hope you will find the documentary informative, and I hope it will contribute to this very interesting discussion that is being organized right now. Thanks.
Welcome, dear colleagues, guests, and fellow students. Thank you all for joining our panel discussion. I am very pleased to see the full audience here, and I feel genuinely honored to have such highly regarded guests in our panel discussion. I would like to kindly ask our guests to join me on the stage. Come in. Speaking of our guests, I'd like to start introducing the Austrian ambassador in Kosovo. Ever since he finished his postgraduate studies at the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna, His Excellency has served in multiple high-ranking positions of different political institutions of the European Union. Being highly experienced in the West Balkan area, he has already served in the Austrian embassy in Kosovo back in 2007 and 2008 as well. Please welcome His Excellency Gernot Pfandler. The next person deals with Kosovo's integration in the European Union on a daily basis. Being one of the youngest members of the cabinet, he has served as an advisor to the former Premier Minister Hashim Thaçi and has been the executive director of several NGOs such as the Initiative for Progress, the Kosovo Institute of Peace, and others. Please welcome the Deputy Minister of European Integration, Mr. Ramadan Ilazi. Our next guest has been a decision maker in the process of choosing the individuals that will be granted asylum. In 2014, he started serving as the Migration Attache for the German Embassy in Pristina, And after leaving the Federal Office for Migration and Refugees in Germany, he's now sitting here. Please welcome the Mr. Manuel. Excuse me. I'd like to introduce myself as well. My name is Aslan Berisha. I am 21 years old, and what I did is the very opposite of what the people did that we just saw in the video. Born and raised in Germany, I've been living in Kosovo for the last 2 years now. And I'm certainly not the only one in our club. About 25 years ago, my parents faced a situation that many Kosovars had to cope with in this year as well. It is the immigration into another country, and accordingly I feel particularly concerned about their fate and future. Migration Opportunities Kosovo. As seen in the informative documentary film, over 30,000 people have left this country alone in the first 2 months of this year, and others quickly followed in the subsequent months. So I'd like to start with the question, what were the causes for the Kosovar migration wave at the beginning of the year? Mr. Pfandler, if you would like to start maybe?
Well, is it my turn? Actually, you know, I'm now here for about 2 weeks and a few days, and I have been here before. Thank you for that. First of all, I would like to thank you all for inviting me here. And
you're welcome.
I'm pleased to be here. It's for me the first time here at the American University in Kosovo, and really I'm glad to be here today. And to your question, I actually I can say that's a question that you should ask yourselves, or not me, who has just arrived here and who has witnessed that from the distance. But for the causes, I think it's best that you tell me what the causes are.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ilazi, what do you think?
Well, also allow me to join the ambassador in congratulating you on having this event and having this discussion. It's an honor to be not just among the distinguished guests of the panel, but to be among you and to have this conversation. Okay. In terms of migration, of course, I think the reasons are many, but I think they can be categorized in 2 main categories: the push factors and the pull factors. These were what we have discussed. And we have taken a number of measures to address these issues. But of course, one of the main reasons is this social economic situation is something of a factor and an issue that will take more time to solve for all of us. And I think EU is meeting us halfway with recently signing the SA with us, which is a crucial agreement to open our market with the European Union and to also encourage foreign direct investments and a number of other measures. But let me, if I have opportunity to share just a bit of information on this aspect. So what the measures we have taken have resulted significantly in decreasing the number of migration of Kosovo citizens into EU as of March of 2015. On the contrary, in November and December 2015, as well as January and February 2015, are months that reached its peak in terms of Kosovo citizens using irregular routes to migrate to EU countries. A Eurostat report confirms that during the first half of 2015, there were 48,870 first-time asylum Kosovar applicants into EU, plus Switzerland and Norway. Whereas Eurostat's second quarter report, 2015, confirms that there are only 8,590 first-time asylum Kosovar applicants into EU, plus Switzerland and Norway. We have been working together with Parliament and all institutions to address these push factors in a sense. As you know, on February 5th, 2015, our Assembly adopted a resolution on preventing irregular migration, and it calls to the government to take all measures necessary to address this issue. In addition to this, we are we have approved a government program that mainly orients itself to the economic situation as means to basically addressing this issue. In addition to this, we have expressed our readiness to be part of the European agenda on migration. This means us receiving the new wave of migrants from the Middle East, and we are working on the technicalities to see this through. In addition to this, we have endorsed the declaration of the high-level conference on the Eastern Mediterranean Western Balkan route on October 8th, last month, 2015. One other positive news on migration is that there is a huge number of our citizens now returning to Kosovo. As of now, we have 17,000 citizens readmitted in Kosovo, and 90% of them are on voluntary basis. What this means is that they don't appeal the first decision into a court. And if this number goes like this, by end of the year, we will have about 20,000 people returned, compared to, for example, only 4,610 readmitted in 2014. So we have about 300% increase in our citizens readmitted. And we are no longer the cause. We are no longer the problem for migration, in a sense. Also, in terms of pull factors, we have addressed this together with the European Union. And we are now in the EU harmonized list of safe countries of origins, thus eliminating any unclarities that there were for our citizens about asylum rights. So in that sense, there has been some work, but let me say that, of course, the main causes, which I think it was dominating the public debate about social economic, that will take time. I have also argued personally that continuous perception of isolation for citizens of Kosovo may have contributed to creating mystic idea about Europe.
Mr. Ilazi, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I would like to kindly ask you to narrow it down one sentence because we have to keep track of the discussion.
I was about to, maybe it would have taken this long. So, this idea of creating mysticism about Europe, whereas it's the land of opportunities and all of that, without the opportunity to travel, and let's not forget the isolation for our citizens is not a recent phenomenon. It's quite for some years now, and my father could travel to EU countries with his communist Yugoslav passport without any problem. His son, holding a democratic passport of a country that has tried its best to apply the liberal peace principles, and we have a national anthem without any words, not to offend anyone, the flag, the constitution, everything we're trying to do here, and still we are isolated. So I think this is a bit counterproductive to also what EU is trying to do in the region, but I think this is an argument I think EU as well finds interesting, and it is a partnership with the European Union. It's not one where we are working against each other, just so to clear that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Platte, what is your opinion on the cause of the Kosovo migration?
First, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the film for introduction. For the cause of migration, I think we have seen some things in the film, and you already said some things. For example, economic reasons, or for example, the labor market. Maybe some Kosovar people don't see perspective in the next years for their lives or the children. What I've seen in the film was the mixture with the topic of visa liberalization in connection with these reasons. First, I was at a bus station in January and February. I talked with some of the people who left, and they very often they said they want to go to Europe for work or to give their children better education. And all these reasons are not, or you cannot deal with these reasons during with help of visa liberalization, because visa liberalization.
Mr. Platte, I apologize. Could you maybe please just pull the microphone
Okay,
more?
I try to be a little louder.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The visa liberalization don't help with issues of labor market or with issues of education in Germany or in Europe, because visa liberalization only is connected with short-time travel for touristic reasons or for business reasons. So we should not mix these two topics. We have seen in Germany that the question of labor market, for example, is a reason for travel. And in the last year, we tried to deal with it in a positive way. Some of you may have seen it in the city of Pristina. We have opened the DMAG. It's an office from the GIZ. And it's DMAG, Deutscher Informationspunkt Migration, Ausbildung und Karriere. everybody can go to the DMARC and ask the people, what can I do to travel legally? What do I have to fulfill? And even if you get the end where you don't have good possibilities to travel to Germany or to Europe for work or for a longer time, they give you hints what can you do to improve. They can even give hints how you can deal with the visa application. They can give you information. So this was one thing we tried to improve. And the second one, what happened in Germany, we have changed the law for asylum and for legal migration. The change in the law started 24th of October. All people who apply for asylum in Germany and are from Western Balkan countries, for example from Kosovo, have to prove why they're politically persecuted. Is the right word? I think so. During the time of the asylum process, they stay in the first center where they arrived and where they were kept until the process, the asylum process is finished. So we have seen in the film that for some people it could have been beneficial to apply for asylum in Germany, and that's not the reason anymore. We try to stop that.
Thank you, Mr. Klatten. We'll continue with the second question. I just would like to kindly remind you again, gentlemen, try to narrow it down on one sentence or another one sentence, but to the main points, because we're running out of time, being honest. Only 2 to 3 months ago, the first statistics revealed that more than 90% of the asylum seekers coming from Kosovo were not granted what they have traveled thousands of kilometers for. Recent numbers show that people are still leaving to seek asylum, but the amount of Kosovars has sharply declined in comparison to others. So the question is, has this been only a short-term trend, or do you expect this to happen again? Again, I would like to ask you, Mr. Pfandler.
Thank you. Well, I think we have to be clear very much what we're talking about, and as it just also has been mentioned by the other speakers of the panel, I think we are mixing a little bit different phenomena here. One is migration, one is asylum and refugee, the other one is visa liberalization. It's all different things. So asylum is something, there is a legal obligation of those countries who are members of the parties to the Geneva Convention. If there are the reasons, as in the Geneva Convention, then this country is obliged to protect people who are claiming asylum. The other one is migration in the strict sense of the word. Migration is a migrant is somebody who chooses voluntarily to leave his home country, go to another country to live there, work there, whatever, but who can anytime return to his country of origin whenever he wants to. And actually, migration is something that is, it's so to say, in the country that accepts migrants has its own right to regulate migration flows as it wants. So to say, there is no legal right to migration, except, for example, if you're in the EU, other EU member states, citizens of other EU member states can, of course, come to another member state anytime, even to work there, to live there, whatever. And visa liberalization is again, or a visa is completely different again, as it has been, but I just need to stress that to have a visa means you can travel to a country that gave you this visa, but you're not allowed to work there, and it's just for a short term usually, so it's very strictly to be separated from permanent stay or from working permits. That we must have to be absolutely clear. So do I think this Syrian boy lying at the beach having died the night before? So I think that this is perceived with a lot of emotions, and then, so to say, when the people were arriving at our borders, of course, it also caused some it also led to some fears with people. Of course, people saw this and maybe a few felt anxiety, and this, they were thinking, oh, where is this leading to? However, I was personally, and I must say I'm a bit proud of the reaction from many of my compatriots. What has developed then in particular this summer, it was started I think July, August, was an unprecedented wave of support from the population, from the civil society. And actually this is still going on, and I'm impressed about, so to say, how much, so to say, this solidarity, how far this solidarity goes. And so there are thousands of people working at railway stations, at border crossing points, Red Cross, other organizations, people just from the population coming to help and support these people when they arrive. Our public administration is doing its best to cope with the flow of refugees. We had, of course, a surge of asylum applications. So we expect up to 85, maybe even 90,000 asylum applications for this year only. I would like to say that Austria has certain experience with waves of refugees in our history, also in the post-war history, and the most recent one you might be well aware of was in the wars in the former Yugoslavia. There were about 90,000 refugees alone from Bosnia coming to Austria. So we have had other historic experience as well in the 50s and the 60s. So we know the phenomenon, but it's still hard if you see it in your lifetime, so to say, also as a professional who is used to observe these things with a certain professional neutrality. But in this time, of course, emotions played a role. Yeah, I stop here. Of course, maybe say also.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Plante, it's your turn.
I'll be very short. I think we have a common language and common culture, and so a very close friendship. And this shows, for example, in the work of asylum officers of all countries, which are very close together. It shows in the border policemen who work very close together. So yeah, we deal with it as a group.
Thank you. I'll come to the last question. I'd like to start with Mr. Ilazi. How has the recent refugee crisis stabilized or destabilized the state relations within the European Union? And what are the effects on the Schengen Agreement? Is the European Union in danger, maybe? I'm asking you because you're kind of an outsider since Kosovo's not in the European Union. Kind of. So I'd like to hear your perspective first.
Well, again, I think, just to echo what Ilazi was saying, and Mr. Plante, I think Europe has shown solidarity many times. And what we've seen in recent ways, and maybe we should have begun, because this topic is now an issue in Europe, and we saw the barbaric attacks in Paris, which are attacks also against Kosovo, because they are attacks on European values, and what we're trying to do here is to build a European country based on those values. And France only showed solidarity and compassion to these migrants, but of course they were not only participating, but we in this kind of situation, it is when the commitment to these values is always tested, and it hasn't been big. And we have known we have seen the photos from Austria, from Germany, of people lining up, providing blankets, providing clothes to these migrants coming from quite a difficult journey, and very dangerous journey, and not very hospitable in some countries. In Preševo, for example, people were trying to benefit from these migrants by charging them €5 per person to go just to the bus station. Okay, and this was really tag situation. So, but of course, I know Europe is not going to turn the other way on this debate, because what makes Europe great, it is the values on which it is founded. And I think this test is not going to put into question the European project as a peace project. And I always go back to, again, another important German that I find very, very inspirational and dear to the thinkers. It's Kant, Immanuel Kant. And when we think about what Europe is today, it is Kant's plan for perpetual peace. And one of his arguments back then, and this is a person who could think of these kind of values in the 17th century, and us in 21st, we cannot still continue to question these values. I think one of his arguments is hospitality. But of course, hospitality are the conditions. And I am sure that Europe is going to emerge from this only stronger, not just the attacks in Paris, but also the migrant crisis. But we have a burden to share. This is a civilization that we also have a responsibility to defend as part of Europe. I'm talking about the region and Kosovo. And we need to share the burden of hospitality as well, and that's what I said, that we are willing, not just willing, but we are discussing how many migrants can come. Of course, none of the migrants came to Kosovo or past. Maybe they also heard that the people in Kosovo want to leave as well. But in that sense, it's just a joke, but we are ready, we are preparing facilities to host. When we speak of Europe for the region, and I will close with this, because I also see there's a lot of interest about our debate. We started quite...
They literally have classes on
yeah. Oh,
12:13, that's...
I thought it was something we were saying. But let me just highlight that when we talk to our friends from Europe, and when we, because now to me it's some, I can understand the German and Austrian, but when we have Slovak, Czechs, Polish debate on Europe, it's weird to me, because these were countries that at one point were out of Europe and trying to get in, and but now they forgot about the benefits maybe, and we need to remind them. And the best region to remind them of this is Balkans. To us, European Union is not just about ticking the boxes of reforms, bureaucratic, economic. It is what is keeping the region together. Would you have ever imagined Prime Minister Vučić of Serbia shaking hands with Prime Minister Attache, former Prime Minister Attache of Kosovo? If it wasn't for European integration process, I would highly doubt. I think without this European perspective, this region would have just went into a constant cycle of violence. You remember the reactions in Serbia when then President Tadic only shook, I think they shook hands in this Margin Service Summit in Croatia, the reactions. And now, not they only shaking hands, they are signing agreements. And of course, to us it's more. And sometimes our friends in Europe said, we wish Balkan people can come to Europe and share the debate about Europe also with in our debate, because I think sometimes in debate we're losing what Europe meant at one point for everyone. And I think it's important to remind, but of course us that are trying to get in, when we see these debates about Brexit, exit, Grexit, all of that, to us, we find them with a bit concerning, but I think concerning in the sense of how important it is to keep this European dream alive. And the best thing we can do, I think, is to demonstrate to Europe that this process has also transformed the Balkan countries, and perhaps the term Balkan will not be found in African journals to describe situations there, which is quite sometimes interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Ilazi. Mr. Pfandler, is the European Union in danger maybe?
No. No. Believe me, it's not, and you can be absolutely sure about that. It's a challenge, yes, it is. But as the Prime Minister just said, crises usually make the European Union stronger than before. And on this specific situation, Schengen is also not in danger. The border checks that are now being erected are in full compliance with the Schengen regime, and this allows temporary checks until up to 6 months. So we are still far away from these 6 months, and even then you can find ways. So no, Schengen not. But it is an interesting thing. I think maybe the Dublin system will be further developed. That is maybe something where we are heading now to. And you see already the first steps in that direction. And the EU has already taken steps, considerable steps, at the European Council in August, for example. So even a quota for relocation or redistribution of refugees has been agreed. Of course, implementation is always another thing, but the agreement is there. And also the decisions have been taken to erect hotspots in Greece and in Italy. One of them is already working. Others are currently established. I think it is important, and this is now more and more acknowledged, that of course the EU has to be able to protect its borders. That is clear. And a member of if you're a Schengen border state, you have the obligation to protect the border. So we go into the direction. There has been an EU naval maritime operation has been started in the Mediterranean. That's operational already since months. We are discussing strengthening Frontex, reinforcing Frontex. Means are being discussed. I'm talking under control of the migration attache, who will correct me if I noted anything wrong, because I'm not an expert in these areas, but still. And and of course, it's a comprehensive problem and needs a comprehensive solution. So, of course, we have to see where the root causes are, that's clear, and that's maybe even the most complicated thing to address. But even there, we see movement. First of all, there's a clear commitment by the EU that a considerable amount of money has already been made available to support the refugees in the camps located around Syria and Iraq. So Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey, where actually still the biggest group of refugees are still living. So to support these countries in this enormous task. And finally, of course, the diplomatic solution for the problem in Syria and Iraq. And we have seen considerable progress there as well. Just during the last days, in Vienna, there was a meeting on the 14th of November. It was the third of that kind. And if you look at the list of participants who were there, just actually, I would say several weeks ago, you wouldn't have guessed that, or you wouldn't have dared to predict that countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia would sit at the same table to discuss exactly the problem in Syria. So this has happened, and the discussion continued, and afterwards at the G20 summit in Antalya. And so we have now a roadmap. We have a schedule for the development. So let's see how this can be implemented. But a lot has been going on now during the last days, actually, on the political in the political area. So I'm hopeful that something goes into that direction also positively. And with this package of measures, be them internally, be them at our borders, be them internationally, I think we are in a good way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Plate.
Yes, nothing to add. I think EU and Schengen is safe. I wanted to say that the migration wave from Syria, from Iraq, is a completely another phenomenon than the migration we see from Kosovo, or we have seen from Kosovo. And even when we was facing the mass migration from Syria and Iraq, in Germany we're still working on how to make it more possible to move legally for Kosovarians and other Western Balkans. So even was facing the mass migration wave, we had the law from 24th of October that made it possible, or will make it possible for the 1st of January 2016 for people who was out vocational training, who was out proper education, to find jobs in Germany if they do it in accordance with the rules of migration. So if they apply for a visa and give a visa application that is correct and without any fakes also. So even facing this mass migration wave, we are still working on how we could make it more possible to offer legal migration.
Thank you, Mr. Plate. Gentlemen, thank you for having this discussion with me. unfortunately, we ran out of time, so we don't have time for a question and answer session. Well, maybe there's one answer, or one question that we could answer really quick. Is there, Maritan?
Thank you for this discussion. My question is to you, Mr. Ambassador, especially. Is Austria as a country willing to recruit skilled workers from Kosovo, like Germany, as is doing with opening the roads to the skilled worker immigration for recruiting recent graduating doctors in different areas of Germany? I have friends who are going from Kosovo as a skilled worker, and I want to know if Austria is willing to do the same with Kosovars here, recruiting them as skilled workers in different fields, the fields that Austria is in scores of those skills. Thank you.
As far as I know, I mean, if you are a professionalist in a certain area, there are a few specified professions that are indeed in demand worldwide, actually. So I don't know exactly. I'm really here not the biggest expert. But if you are, so to say, an engineer, in a very specialist area. These people are looked for actually worldwide in industrialized countries. So yes, for these people actually there exist already now possibilities. There's the so-called red card, that to say, to allow specifically these specialized experts to work in Austria. So there are there are possibilities there, but it is a limited number that are qualified for this program. I have to admit.
Is it a short question?
Yeah.
Okay, real quick.
I wanted to ask the three of you, but any of you can answer since we don't have time. Earlier all of you mentioned that we as the youth of Kosovo should take initiative into improving our country instead of waiting for other countries to help us. And I do agree with that quote or that idea. And I just think that we as the youth of Kosovo we do not have the resources or the appropriate means to do so. And I was wondering if any of your embassies have any programs that actually help Kosovar youth to put these ideas that they have into practice without actually having to leave the country? Or are you planning to do any programs that would help the Kosovo youth reach this ideal that we all have? Thank you.
That's my possibility to make advertisement for the GI that. The GI that is working in development of countries. Here in Kosovo they have a youth program and on youth workers for you. So if you have a good idea and you can write it in a good way, let's say in English or in German, then try to send them the idea and maybe they could do a project or something like this.
Also that the AAD, the Academic German Exchange for students, is an opportunity for students to study for intensive summer courses in Germany, or like undergraduate or graduate studies for free.
That I cannot answer exactly, but there's Mrs. Ertlet. You can ask her directly. I think she's in Pristina, in the university, in the Kosovo University. You can ask her directly in her contact hours.
Dear audience and guests, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. And please join us at our reception in front of the auditorium. Thank you.